allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now I need a motion to approve the budget hearing agenda, please.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All righty. Miller?
Aye.
Albert?
Aye.
Mack?
Aye.
Weedman?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Weldon.
Okay, thank you. This is the budget hearing presentation of Community Consolidated 46 for the fiscal year 2025, for the school year ending June 30th, 2025. Okay, I believe that the budget process supports all these things in our mission, specifically empowering learners. Most of the budget conversations take place over several months and revolve around student-centered decision-making. And it takes a community of engaged team members to build a budget that are responsive to the needs of all students. Here's our finance goal. I believe that all the goals are reflected in the budget, all 6 of them, not just the finance goal. And we have board policy 4:20, which is our board policy we're very familiar with in all the different finance presentations, maintaining an operating fund balance of 25 to 30%. Here's the timeline of the budget. So as we finalize the budget timeline today, later on in the agenda, at the regular board meeting, we will start the levy process. So we started the budget in May 15th when we presented the preliminary budget. That was primarily a memo discussing a narrative to you of all the different things that go into the budget. Straight after that, on June 7th, we presented the budget to you in tentative form. With updates from May. We then put it on public display, and that brings us to today, which is the hearing on September 18th. And then as per Illinois School Code, we have till September 30th to file that with the Regional Office of Education and the Illinois State Board of Education. So changes since the tentative budget. The main one, there's small ones, but the main one is our evidence-based funding was finalized. We had a higher than, we had $300,000 extra in revenue than what it actually came in. So I actually used the previous year's increase, which was 2.1. We actually came in at 1.8. So we got 20 million and 20.3 million. So we actually had to reduce our revenue of $300,000. So the main movement from tentative to final was a $300,000 increase in the deficit. Very familiar with our current situation. We talked a lot about it in the Finance Committee. Obviously, the last 3 years, I have not, every budget I've presented to you has been a deficit. So I guess it's me, I don't know. I just keep presenting these deficit budgets to you, but we're gonna get out of it, I promise, because we're gonna make the right decisions moving forward with our revenue. Again, budget deficits are a symptom of a structural deficit. I've talked a lot about this for the last 3 years. 3 areas that I wanted to bring to your attention are employee benefits, transportation, and supports for students. That is 3 of the really large increases that we're seeing. Employee benefits, Blue Cross Blue Shield, you've seen those increases I brought to you over the last 3-4 years. Transportation, large increases coming out of COVID, and supports for students across the board, not just for those special ed interpreting services, but they just have increased significantly, and they just cost a lot in terms of purchase services to support those students. This isn't, the last bullet is not on the Illinois report card, but it is our most updated number. We're still a Tier 1 district. We've reached 70% adequacy, and our adequacy gap is now 15.9 million, not 17. So, again, continuing with the current situation, we're all very aware that in April we passed the limiting rate referendum, which gives 6 million extra to 3 million for operating, 3 million for capital, and the district is only able to levy to PTEL moving forward. Very familiar with that conversation. And what do we get for that? We get, this is from the Illinois report card of 2023, 2 exemplary schools and 6 which are commendable. There is our EBF. So I've talked a little bit about this earlier in the Finance Committee. The previous year, 2017, we were around 10 million because that was the old GSA plus the mandated categoricals, which kind of merged like a transformer into EBF. And sorry, it's terrible. Lynn's face is just what? So that was the first year of EBF, and then you can see the growth. We had 1 flat year, which was COVID, and then you can see the increases as we've reached 70%. Here are some other state funding sources. So we receive special ed transportation reimbursement. We have an early childhood block grant, and we receive transportation reimbursement for both transporting our special ed kids and our regular kids. Special ed kids are when they're outplaced. The regular kids are those which are over that 1.5 miles or they have a hazard. And then we have a small library grant of $2,800. Federal funding, I'm going to run through the numbers and then I'm going to talk a little bit about them. So that's how this is going to work. So we get food reimbursement through the National School Lunch Program of about $500,000. Used to be a lot higher during COVID when we were giving free meals. That's what it is right now. I'll show some of the numbers about what we actually get in reimbursement. We also take part in the in the school breakfast program called the SBP. Obviously less kids take part in that, and there's a small reimbursement. And then we have IDEA Part B grant funding, which we get a preschool portion, a flow through, and room and board. We have title grants, that's the amounts we receive, which is improving basic programs for $450,000. That's the largest one of the title grants. We also receive Title II, high quality, EL acquisition, and student achievement. The student achievement portion is actually rolled into Title II. And then we receive Medicaid services, which I'll touch on in the next slide. Because here's what we spend on them. This is what we do. So I'm going to try and read this as best as I can because my font looks really small from here. I wish I would have made it slightly bigger. I'm going to read it from this one. Okay, National School Lunch Program. We are reimbursed for free and reduced meals per student. So we're all very aware that we have a food service management company, Organic Life. They sell the meals and we pay them a fee, but then we're actually reimbursed on a per meal basis. So the lunch is reimbursed at $4.43 for free. It's a 40-cent reduction for reduced, and breakfast it's at $2.37 and $2.07 for reduced. And then the state kicks in a huge 4 cents, which is amazing, really, for both. And then we charge $3.80 and $2.15 for the breakfast. So we're not supposed to run a profit for this. It's supposed to be a not-for-profit food program. So obviously we're trying to get the best food we can for that reimbursement. Just as a complete aside, I've anecdotally been told that there's quite a lot of meals being sold at several of the middle schools. So I hope to bring Organic Life back to show you some of the work that they've started to do in the first few weeks with us. And then we have IDEA Part B. Maintenance and effort must be used to supplement for funding sources. These are some of the things that IDEA Part B is spent on: instructional supplies and materials, specialized equipment, technology, resources, and subscriptions. And then we have that, so that's for everybody. And then we have the ones which are for 3 through 5, which is the IDEA Preschool Grant, which is instructional supply and materials, field trips for those young kids, the kiddos, and professional development for those staff. This is a great one. We've got everything we did here for title. This is like Amy went crazy today by telling everything that we do. So I'm going to try my best to walk through it. Title grants, we have, as I mentioned, we actually are able to merge Title II and Title IV together because it's only $5,000 in the Title IV. In Title I, we spend it on, it's the 2 buildings that I mentioned earlier. It's Avon and Prairie View, which are called targeted assistance schools. And that we're able to spend it on all those different areas. So instructional supplies, field trips, and all the different things that really enhance those buildings. Jumping to Title III, that's our summer school and our BPAC, which is now the MPAC. which is for helping our English language learners. And then the middle group is Title 2 and 3, which is really focused on high-quality teachers. And you can see that from all the different things that we do professional development related. Questions about that, I can take them at the end, or one of my friends can jump in and answer the question. Okay, service billing funding. This is Medicaid. We are able, I'm going to read this one for you. Medicaid administrative claiming reimburses school districts for the time and effort staff spend on activities that support Medicaid-covered services, even if they are not direct medical services. So that includes coordination of health services, outreach to medical eligible students, administrative support. So we receive one portion of Medicaid through that, and then we also receive it through what's called a fee-for-service, which is when we receive specific services for speech therapy, occupational therapy, PT, psychological services, and nursing services. You can tell that I've been sat with Heather all day because we've really gone through this. So those things count towards the 120,000 and the 200,000, which are all part of that kind of 4% total federal amount of the budget. So then we come to the all funds, which is the total deficit. That includes debt service. You can see we've been very familiar with that $7.8 million payment that we've just been talking about in the Finance Committee. The difference between that payment and what you can see on the debt service is the payment, the final payment for our solar. So it's the final payment for that, and then we will on those. And then obviously the difference between capital projects, that is years 3 capital projects. And then we get to our operating budget, which is excluding those. Sources of revenue, we're pretty familiar with this graph because I think I present it every year. Breakdown with 58, so this is the revenue, 58% comes from taxpayers, which is the levy. 34% comes from state aid. The largest portion of that is EBF, and the few of the grants that I talked about. And then we have federal aid making up 4%, which is all those other grants we just talked about. And then expenditures, 62% is salaries plus benefits, which is our staff. And further 14% is purchase services, and that's all those contracts that I keep bringing to you all the time. GSF, Durham, and most recently our contract with Organic Life. And then as you can, the final thing you can see there, which is hopefully going to disappear, debt service, debt and interest, which is 11%. So that's that large payment that we've been talking about recently. And then finally, kind of what are we doing? This is the same slide that I presented at tentative, the Avon roof, which has actually been completed. We have our replacement Chromebooks, which is the going from the 4-year to the 3-year, which Amanda's presented to you and we're all very aware of. In that refresh cycle, we have the new camera system at Frederick, and then we have our security assessment. So next steps, approval tonight. I will file the 5036, which is the state form, which has been completed, with Lake County, the Regional Office of Education, and ISB. And then usually I would start to prepare a November projection. Questions?
I have a point of clarification. How much money do we get? I know not percentage-wise, but for the titles and the idea, and how that's coming from all from the federal government, correct? From the Department of Education?
Is the title coming from the Department of Ed? Yes, it is, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right.
I'll second.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack, Albert,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Braden.
Aye.
All right.
I'll move.
17. Oh, no, you don't need to move. Yep. Mack? Braden?
Here.
Nash? Not here. Albert?
Here.
LaCroy? Not here. Miller?
Here.
And Weedman.
Here.
We did the pledge earlier. I just need a motion to approve this evening's agenda for the regular meeting.
So moved. I'll second.
Miller?
Aye.
Mack?
Aye?
Albert?
Aye.
Weedman?
Aye.
And Braden.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm assuming we still have no public comments, so that brings us to the board reports this evening. I'm going to start this evening real quick. I just wanted to offer up congratulations to Sue, who we got an email today about her nomination for the Holly Jack Outstanding Service Award. So the district and the board has worked to put together a nomination packet for her, and we got the confirmation today, and then the award ceremony and the awarding will happen during the joint annual conference when we're downtown, but we are really, really happy to nominate you for that award and recognize you for being an amazing colleague and friend to all of us here on the board and certainly in the district and to the families throughout the community. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We should have cake.
Yeah. The one time she doesn't bring cake.
There's candy in the bags over there, everyone. There's snacks over there. We'll get cake.
We will definitely get cake, and Sue will not be allowed to order
That's
it.
correct. We'll order it. So it probably won't be as good as when you order it, but we'll order it. And then another quick update just for the October 9th dinner. If you have not registered, let Sue know for that, please. Confirming again that the meeting is a little bit of a different style. It's going to be appetizers and desserts with a legislator carousel. So it's a chance for board members to interact with Lake County legislators. All 15 Lake County legislators have been invited to attend. I don't know the final count yet, but they will be available for, I believe they're presenting a short presentation on a topic relevant to legislation, to the school boards, to public education, so on and so forth, and gives us a chance to actually go into small groups this time around rather than a dinner setting. So they're piloting this to see how that goes. So they are also encouraging us to be very honest in the follow-up survey that you typically get, because they're going to want to know if this is something. I think they're looking at doing one of the dinners like this, and then the other dinner, which typically is in the spring, would be the standard dinner model. The joint annual conference update that I received, there's already 4,300 registrations so far out of 602 districts. So signing, it's shaping up to be large again. And 13 resolutions have so far been submitted to the Delegate Assembly at this point. So that was the most recent update from Mark Tepper, who is the Lake Division Director. So that is my update. I'll start down here, Mr. Weedman.
Sure. So obviously school's back in. We've been in for roughly a month, right? Just like to remind those that are watching and those that have teenage drivers and those adult drivers out there, make sure you're paying attention on the roads for the school buses and for the children walking to school. Just be mindful of that. Have a conversation with your kids that are driving. I know on my street they go by really fast. So, and I have 3 bus stops within 3 blocks. So, just slow down a little bit. And then, on a little bit of a patting my kid on the back, my oldest son, Jason, had an internship with, Laura Favor Diaz over the summer. He worked with, Chris, to put some proposals together regarding, unfunded mandates, and he gave his presentation to them. So we're kind of For him, it was an internship to be able to kind of get his name out there, but it was also, he used it to kind of further help the school district, everywhere, to try and work on getting rid of some of these unfunded mandates that are coming down. So he had a couple of proposals that he put forth towards her. So I just wanted to kind of pat him on the back for that, because it kind of helps us as well if it can actually be something that gets moved forward. That's all I have.
Congratulations, Jason. My only report is just a reminder that the Village Harvest is October 5th. Thanks to the district again for your support. We are partnering with the library, and there will be over 15, maybe 20 community groups and organizations along the path to remind families that they are not in this parenting adventure alone. There's a hayride. There are 100 free mini apple pies for the first 100 people that show up. The GMS band is playing. There's a folk band playing. Circus Kazoo is performing, and thanks to Circus Kazoo for being a sponsor to our event. The library is going to host Area 1 SEL Director Maureen McCabe at the library. She will have a variety of activities that are family friendly, so that parents and kids have a common language about what our district has been doing for a while. There's also a folk band at the library and a passport activity, and that includes a raffle prize. And there are lots of things in it, but one of them is this book, which is super fun. It's called How to Make an Apple Pie, and the gist of it is, if you want to make an apple pie, just go to the market, but unless the market's closed, and then you have to go to Jamaica or Vermont or somewhere else to get the ingredients for the pie. So there will be 4 of these in the basket, and this gives you kind of the theme of a multicultural crowd is what we're hoping for. And then also there will be multiple copies, because we are hoping that generosity is a social skill that we're going to want to amplify. So whoever wins this will have the opportunity to give 3 copies out to other kids or other adults, whoever wants them. So again, there's 3 foci for that. One is just food and fun. The second one is to kind of create a bridge between families who have moved here or new to our area, have been here less than 3 years, 3 years or less, and then families who have been here 3 or more years, kind of be an event that bridges the relationships between those 2 groups. And then the third one is the SEL component, again, building our community's capacity for that and creating some opportunities around that. So again, October 5th from noon to 2, it starts at GMS or the library, either way.
I have no reports. I had a question. Oh, my question was, are the legislators that are coming to our dinner, those how many did you say are coming? Are those state level?
Yes.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
I just want to invite my fellow board members to join me at a table at the Village Harvest on October 5th. If anybody's available, I plan on just being there to engage with people and listen, probably take some notes. And then the other thing is the Community Engagement Committee had our inaugural meeting last week, and it was a good meeting of just reconnecting and sharing all their beginning of the year activities and events that they helped put on.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'll hand it over to Dr. Glickman for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Mack. Well, I'm going to start by commenting on a couple of things that board members have commented on. I too wish to congratulate Sue Walker for her nomination. It was really fun to put that together with some board members. It's always really nice to step back and think about what a colleague means to you, and it is impossible to imagine a better partner in this work, so thank you for everything you do, Sue. I also want to comment on the Village Harvest. So as board, as you've heard, this is an event for everyone for sure, but it was born out of an idea to celebrate and welcome our newer families, right? Is that, well?
To create a bridge between.
Create a bridge, certainly. So we want to do everything we can to let our new families know about it. So one way that we're doing that is directly kind of direct email to all of the families that are new this year. And that worked perfectly because I was already planning to do a thought exchange survey with our newest families, asking some questions about what their experiences have been thus far and why they chose to enroll their children in our schools and perhaps move to our school districts. So I'm doing that all at one time, so an email will be going out to those folks, letting them know about this event with a flyer and then also a link to a survey for them. Back to school nights have all been completed, so board, if you have children in our schools, hopefully you had a chance to talk with teachers at back to school night. This past Monday night, we had our first Media Center Core Planning Group meeting. Board, you'll remember we've talked about that a few times here, and we invited community members and staff members to be a part of this planning group. This is the kickoff for thinking about what our media centers can be. And remember, this is work that we'll be doing in the summer of 2026 with funding that has come through the yes vote for the referendum. And so we will be doing that work in summer of 2026, which will be here before we know it, so the planning starts now. We'll be having 3 or 4 meetings with this initial group. Their purpose is to consider criteria for all of our media centers. So folks aren't specifically speaking about the media center that at the school where they work or where their child goes to school. It's what is needed in all of our media centers throughout the district. After that work has been completed, then we'll be narrowing in the latter half of this school year on how we make it happen at each one of the schools. We have 27 members of this committee. And I mentioned on Monday night that I was absolutely blown away by the fact that we had 27 people say they wanted to be a part of it, and 27 people show up for the first meeting. And that just doesn't ever happen, right? People are busy. Every single person was there. We have information specialists and library assistants. We have STEM teachers. We have core classroom and art teachers. We have parents. We have school administrators and central office administrators. And the meeting was really exciting. The next meeting will be on October 7th, and following that, 2 days later, we're doing a field trip to several school districts, to be named later, that have, over the past number of years, updated their own media centers. So we're going to get a chance to take a look at what we're talking about. And thank you very much, by the way, to Durham Bus Company that has offered a free to us bus for that field trip. So thank you, Chris, for helping with that, and we're excited for that trip. I also wanted to mention that I have begun principal goal setting with all of our principals. That's a yearly process, and I'm not really sure if we've ever talked about it here, but I wanted to mention it tonight, that every year I go and meet with each one of our principals and talk about the goals for the school for that year. It's frankly a part of their evaluation process. Amy's been coming with me, and we're having really outstanding instructional conversations at each one of the schools, talking about what the goals are of the school and how we get to the next level with that school. So those have been really deep conversations. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Amy.
Okay. So good evening. I have 2 things I'm going to talk about tonight. The first is that we have started some of our planning and design teams already this year. So got up and running earlier this school year, right around the beginning of the school year. We sent out a survey of interest for anyone, any staff that wanted to participate on some of these teams. We had 72 staff sign up with interest, which is amazing. So I want to celebrate that. And so yesterday, we started with our first PDT, Planning and Design team, which was focused on our multilingual and bilingual programming. And we started by doing some research around and having some conversation around what is our current programming look like? How many students do we have? And so we'll continue that to determine what is the best way to support our students in our district. We'll likely have something more to share with you probably around January or February in a presentation to the board. Tomorrow is our first math PDT, planning and design team, and we are, you may or may not remember that we are in our last year of our 6-year contract for our math resources, both our K-5 and our 6-8. So it's an opportunity for us. We started this PDT last year. We're continuing this year, have some new members on the PDT this year that were interested in joining us, and we're going to continue to look at our standards of mathematical practice, and then also what are the resources that are available to us, and decide which is the right one to bring to you for recommendation later in the school year. So to start for next school year. So that is going on. And then next week, the culturally responsive teaching and leading standards, PDT will be starting, and that PDT will be working on looking at the Illinois culturally responsive teaching and leading standards and looking at how we can best implement those within our district. So super excited about that work. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was MAP testing. So we have completed our fall MAP assessment, NWA MAP assessment, for grades 1 through 8. Kindergarten's actually taking it in a couple weeks. And so I don't know, we talk about it when we talk about the data itself, but I just wanted to share a couple reasons why we do that every year and just remind you of that. We do it 3 times a year, so we do it fall, winter, and spring. And one of the reasons we do that is to benchmark our students. So we want to see comparatively with some national norms where our students falling, but then we use that information for a lot of purposes. So one of the greatest tools within the reports is you can look at individual student profiles, and that helps us to identify what are strengths for each student, and then what are some areas that we can help to continue students to grow. It aligns directly to state standards, so we can look it up that way by each student. And not only can we look at student proficiency, but we can look at their growth. And so what are we ensuring that students are growing at the rate that they should be? So if students have larger gaps, we want them to grow at a faster rate. And for all students, are they making that year's growth that we want to see? We also use that data to identify students for further screening for tiered intervention. So looking at our students that might need tier 3 intervention, tier 2 intervention, are there further screening tools that we want to dig in and find some more information about those students? And then in the spring, we also use all 3 scores from the school year to help us to start to identify for further screening for either acceleration or for advanced level math courses at grades 5-8. So lots of reasons why we use this data, but it helps us to support our students in their learning.
That's it for the superintendent's report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from board members? No? Okay. All right. That brings us to our consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda this evening, which includes the personnel addendum from earlier today as well.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay.
Braden,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
I have to abstain this time.
pardon?
Abstain.
Okay. Mack
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We do have 4 action items before the board this evening. The first one is need a motion to approve the 2024-2025 budget as was presented.
I'll move. Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Rock, paper, scissors. Okay.
Weedman, oh, I'm sorry. Weedman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
and Albert.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Need a motion to approve the fiscal year 24 EIS compensation report. I'll move.
I'll second.
Braden,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We need a motion to approve the fiscal year 24 IMRF compensation report.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Miller,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
and Albert.
Aye.
Okay, and finally, need a motion to approve the fiscal year 2024 tax levy timeline. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, and motion is approved. We do not have any unfinished business this evening, but we do have new business, which is the sustainability resolution. I'll hand that over to Mrs. Miller.
Thank you. Okay, I have copies to share with everyone, so I'll just do the teacher thing and pass in both directions. And Leslie and I think Brandon's back there. There's ones for you too. If you would like to see just what we're talking about. Thank you. Thank you. I think I have it too, but. Okay, so, just kind of to get centered in this, I just want to remind everyone, that this is the first look. We're not voting on anything, we're not making any decisions tonight, and, the purpose of this is to have, just put something on the table that is new. We don't use this as very often, or at least I have not, and so, again, no decisions are being made tonight. This is just for discussion. So before we start reading, because I know you haven't seen it yet, I just want to start by practicing some of our SEL stuff. Which I wish Dr. Lorenzo was here. But so I'm just going to ask that we kind of get settled in the room. I understand that some of us have seen this, some of us have not. So if we could just kind of do our SEL thing and get centered in what our bodies feel like, I really appreciate the breath work of that. And take a second breath. Just keeping in mind that we're here just to be curious. And if there are distractions, that you can kind of imagine a little box next to you and you can put all those assumptions or stories or past experiences in that box. You can pick them up later, but if now we could just focus on this as a new thing, that would be helpful. And then the third one is just breathe and feel the seat under your seat and the floor under your feet. So, so again, what we're going to go through, I'm going to start from the end first, and then I'm going to talk about kind of where Jess and I have been thinking and how our thinking is going, and then I'm going to just try something, which is a little more structured conversation. It involves hats, so we'll get back to that. So what are we proposing? Just real short, we'll get into more details, but convening a task force, committing to working board meetings, similar but not exactly to what we did with the sustainability earlier this year. Include sustainability as a key consideration in the next strategic plan, develop actionable targets for improving educational environments, and consider communication strategies. So that's kind of where we're going to end. But now if you could go back up to the whereases, because I have not given, Jess and I have worked hard on this, but it just, our timeline didn't allow for us to get it to you sooner. So I'm going to walk through so that you have just a little time to take a look at it. This is kind of the rationale of what we were thinking and why we included the policies. So the first three, I'm not going to read them all, but connect the task force to policies that tell us what the board's work is, not only the product, but the process as well. Number 4 through 6, I put this first. Jess and I talked about how we're a people-first district, and so these 4, 5, and 6 are policies related to the people in our district. And this, of course, is by no means comprehensive. It's just the 3 that we picked out that are most salient to what we're proposing. 7-8 is our commitment to our physical spaces, so both inside and outside. And then the number 8 is focused on finance. 420 is the policy that Chris references all the time in our presentations. 9 and 10, this gives us line of sight into what we could use to measure and communicate what's already being done. There's lots of things going on in our district. And so it just gives us some line of sight, especially into the responsibility we have for monitoring progress and communicating that progress. 11 and 12 illustrate where we get information, and it intentionally takes a look at that we value the expertise of scientists, and we also value the local knowledge that people bring when they come into our task forces and our community engagement groups, all kinds of, in all the different decisions that we're making. And then the last one is that this acknowledges that so much progress has been made in our district and is worthy of recognizing and celebrating. So that's kind of the why and how it's organized, and it tells kind of a bit of a story that way. Okay, so that leaves us, or gets us to the resolution. And again, we talked about 5 things. The first is to convene a task force. So you might be wondering, what is it that we're trying to do in that task force? What would the goal be of that? And the first one is just to define sustainability, which should be pretty easy if we're coming up with an initial definition, because there are several out there. We could kind of pick one. And then do the rest of the work and come back to it and hone it for our district. Again, as this task force would present to the board, it wouldn't be dictating what the district is doing. It would just be sharing what they've talked about. The second would be to identify potential grants and funding mechanisms to contribute to supporting continued sustainability initiatives. Jason talked a lot about, or your son did his research on unfunded mandates. We want to avoid that. And so we want to spend some time looking at what grants are available. There's a subscription service that we can apply for that I have access to called Candid that would allow us to kind of dive into what's available. The third thing that the task force would do is to review existing sustainability policies, programs, and initiatives that guide the district's current progress. And then it gives a list of different things that we acknowledged are going on and we know about. We know that there are probably more, but those are some examples. And then to share their findings with our board by March 2025. So that just if this is a task force, it would have a finite beginning and end. The second thing would be to commit to scheduling and attending working board meetings focused on sustainability. The third, to include sustainability as a key consideration in the next strategic plan. The fourth one is sticky, and so I want to call your attention to that. As Dr. Glickman and I have been talking, it's like, is this a strategic plan? Is this better placed in strategic planning, or is this something a task force would talk about and would consider and bring back to the board? So we need some discussion about that. And then consider strategies to communicate baseline information and progress. And it could include a bunch of things, but we already report greenhouse gas emissions in the solar report. We already talk about energy efficiencies, climate literacy, the health of students, staff, and administrators in other places. Okay, So, I told you I brought my hats. And the reason I brought them is because it's just easier for Jess if we can record some of your questions, because this is just a first look. And so if we can stick to this, I'd just like to invite you into it. We can try it. If it doesn't work, we don't ever have to use it again. But this makes it easier for her to keep questions in categories for us to go back and reiterate after this. Would it be okay if I did this?
I don't think we know what you're doing, but.
It's just structuring the conversation, yeah, to keep us focused. And keep us kind of, again, to make it easier on Jess. Okay, but I need my cheat sheet, so I'm gonna pull that out. Okay, so,
Wearing the hats. I think we all.
you think I should wear them? I don't think they fit so well, but there we go. Okay, white hat.
I ain't wearing a hat.
You don't have to wear it. I will wear it. Okay, so white hat. This is the information that we know, information that we need. I want to encourage everyone at this table to please, as far as, like, it works for your process, Dr. Glickman, is it okay if we invite everyone into this, or? Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, so, white hat. What information is in this that you recognize, and what information do we still need? Do you mind taking notes? And just, okay, thank you. I'm gonna take this off because it will fall. So from this resolution, what information, what else would you need if that doesn't work?
Can you do it?
Thank you.
I need a policy review as useful information, so I appreciate that that's all in one place and kind of builds the narrative. I would want to know kind of information I would want to know would be the bandwidth of our O&M staff and other district staff to implement some of the metrics, reporting, that kind of thing.
Right, okay.
Like what involvement would be needed from district staff and to quantify that as best as we could.
Okay.
So that it's an ask,
A
you know, so
specific
that it's
ask.
understood, you know, what would be needed.
Right. Similar to what we did with the Youth Advisory Council. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Any other information?
Sticking with what we know, the white hat is what we know.
Yes, we're gonna stick
I
with the white
like-
hat. We'll move to other
Can you
hats.
tell us what all the hats are? I think.
Yeah, sorry. Okay,
In
so
French,
the white,
please.
that would be helpful.
Blanc.
Again, I haven't used, okay, so the white hat is information, the yellow hat is benefits and feasibility. So this is the I'm gonna read right off this, optimistic view, but it can't just be it's nice, like, a lot of us are educators in the room, so it's specific as possible, what are the benefits and what would make it feasible, and valuable. And then both the short-term and long-term perspectives. So not just what's beneficial for today, but what's beneficial for later. So yellow is really benefits and feasibility. Then we move to black hat, which is risks, difficulties, and problems. So this is the skeptic view. And we add, again, reasons need to be given. It's not just like this sucks, but it would need to be this is the limitation of this is what we need from it. And potential problems. Then the green hat is new ideas and possibilities. So this is just what is possible in this? What could we generate from this? What might this again is new ideas, possibilities. And then the red hat is what's your gut on this? What do you feel about it? What's your intuition? And you don't need to have reasons for this. You can just be like, this sounds fill in the blank. Is that helpful?
Wait, I only have 5 hats.
What's that?
Check your colors.
Oh, there's a blue
So
hat,
cute.
but I don't have a blue hat.
Okay,
Blue
so,
hat says managing the thinking, but that's what I had a blue hat on.
so the white hat is questions, is that correct?
The white
Right,
hat
is
is
existing knowledge.
information.
Existing, right. What we
None of them
already
are
know.
questions, but there's black hat, so risks, difficulties, and problems. And then we can do questions after that
Okay.
too,
Okay,
but,
thank you.
okay, yeah. Can we move to yellow hat?
Oh, I had a comment for the white hat.
White hat.
Yeah,
You got
but
it.
I know, and
Okay.
it's probably irrelevant, but it's, or not irrelevant, but I like the storytelling.
Yeah.
I just think that's important to share.
Okay.
Because it gives, when you broke out each piece to a grouping, rather than reading all of the, it gives a
A
picture.
rationale?
Yeah, yep.
Good.
But I think that's what we try to do regularly as a board, which I think this is just consistent with that. So.
Anyone else, any information that you need? More information? Go ahead, Chris. No, just saying a breath. Okay, you can breathe. Exhale.
Good, because I don't want to do CPR.
Any other information that you want?
Breathing on himself.
No, I'm trying to think where,
Which hat?
yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I can throw the hat.
I'll come up to it sooner or later.
okay. All right, yellow hat benefits and feasibility. So this is where, again, this is the optimist view.
I mean, sustainability is amazing. And we
Yeah, 'cause
should
you-
continue to focus on it. It's like good.
I agree.
I'm not supposed to say it's just great.
Yeah. What do you,
Well,
What
it's my, I'm
specifically?
sort of now down into some other color hat, because I think it's also a point of pride for the district that can be used in the greater storytelling that we do about our amazingness. So maybe it's a hat blend of the new ideas, of like what could be. It could be a great story to tell about our district.
yeah.
And it is a great story to tell about our district if we put all the pieces together.
Okay.
I would add that sustainability is a way in which we increase learning opportunities for the students about the world around them from a younger age, especially in an elementary district like ours. But that we also look at the benefit of it creating more opportunities for equity amongst our community by looking at the resources we have and how we can all be part of that change that we might need
Got it.
as a benefit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you want to add
Please
something?
tell
I want to contribute to the discussion
Yeah,
and
I
not
was
just
just saying,
take
I
notes.
can write while I can write now.
I also see a huge benefit to having this resolution is making a statement that to our students that we see that collective action and in community can really make a difference and that we're not alone in tackling some big challenges in our society.
I'm wondering if that's a different hat, which is, I would love to see that very explicitly stated then in the therefore, in the whereases. Like this idea that this is a commitment to the generation that's in school now and future generations, that this is about, like, yeah. I think that would be great to include somehow, very explicitly to Jess's point.
Okay.
Good thing lots of people are taking notes, right?
Okay, you're taking notes.
I'm just talking.
Okay.
I don't disagree with anything, but you're not gonna like me when we get to the black hat.
You know what, and I wanna, the black hat is really important, because this is not about, we need to get it right.
Mhm.
Sustainability is important. Okay, so just hold that, but
good.
don't
Nope.
hold back.
I'm-
All right, so green hat, are there new ideas, new possibilities? So this is more forward thinking as opposed to just what are the current benefits, but thinking 50 years out, 100 years out. What are the possibilities, the new ideas that you are aware of as a result of this resolution? If this is the seed of something bigger, what would that be?
I think inspiring other village partners and collaborating with other village partners to create a broader commitment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that each entity is doing something, but like, you know, the ability to be a leader in that and be inspired by other village partners and, yeah, as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the partners, but it's also for the citizens total.
For
the
sure.
whole community.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and this sets a framework for future boards too, I think, right? It keeps it on the radar. I don't know that that's necessarily a new idea, but maybe it's a possibility so that it's something that, you know, we recognize as a critical piece to serving in this capacity. And hopefully, rather than it fading with each successive board after we're gone, I don't think I'm gonna be on the board in 100 years, but maybe as a robot or whatever.
Maybe even in 15 years.
Is there a medal for that long service? I don't know.
Like that movie, All
But you know, I think it sets a framework for the opportunity for that discussion to keep happening, and maybe that's an idealistic viewpoint, but, you know, because you don't know what other successive boards are gonna wanna talk about. But I think if it's there, and if there's an acknowledgement of a resolution, and there's something that we've identified as being a critical piece to educational opportunities and life in our community, then that's a possibility for those future boards to carry that torch going forward. So, you know, without that wording, that actual resolution, then, you know, you may have, but if they see it there, then it's, well, okay, maybe we need to keep talking about this as the things continue to change on the planet. It's always about that story.
I gave my input.
Oh, that's right, you did, sorry. I think I'm gonna add that other districts around the country are looking for samples and for guidance on this, especially mid-level, not the super hyper-wealthy districts. So I think that's a possibility too. Okay, Jim, you wanna lead us on Black Hat? And I'm saying that just teasing you, but
I know.
it is super important. I know, Christy, you alluded to this in the information, that I know all of us are very cognizant of bandwidth for our staff, and we wanna make sure that when we make a decision about this, that is top of mind, so.
To me, I don't want us to lose focus of
Yep.
the kids and think just because it's sustainable that we have to do it versus, and take money that could be going towards something that would more benefit the kids.
Yep.
You know, sustainability is great and all, I agree, I understand where you're going with it, but we can't put so much focus into itself at the dangers of taking away from the educations of the children, because that's what we're ultimately here for.
Right.
You know, I get clean air and I get, you know, the bus thing that we've been talking about. I get some of that, but some of that focuses we're pulling away from other things. We're having staff and their bandwidth being jammed up by things that ultimately take away from the job and ultimately take away from the focus on the children. And I would prefer that we stay, you know, try and stay focused with them more than anything. And that's where you and I have always disagreed, right?
No,
It is to
no.
disagree. But, you know, I just want to try and keep the focus on the kids. That's where I have angst.
So I actually do agree with you, I just think we define sustainability differently, so.
Could be.
So, okay. Anyway, if I'm summarizing, so you don't want mission drift, essentially.
Right.
We don't wanna, reprioritize and bounce our administrators
Right.
around, right?
Yep.
And we don't want to, take focus off of kids. Like, we wanna stay focused on our kids. I don't know if that's mission drift. Is that a summary?
That- Yeah.
Okay.
That pretty much sums that up.
Okay, great. Any, Black Cat?
Go you and
No, you go ahead.
No, you.
I was just gonna actually put on another hat, the educator hat, just from my perspective as a teacher, so no longer a board member, no longer a dad.
Sure.
And so the risk there too, one of the risks that I see with things coming through the school when I go in to teach, is it just becomes a flavor of the month kind of thing.
Yep.
And there's a real risk that if we don't tell the story well, and if we don't tell the story right, and if we don't have the mechanisms, and you and I have talked about this before too, if we don't have the mechanisms, whatever those might be, I'm not sure what that looks like, that it becomes that
Right.
the vision that a board hands down, and this happens in my district, it happens, we see it across the board, that that the reception of it will be like, okay, well, that's an initiative for the year or two that they might be talking about it, and then it'll just flitter off.
Right.
And then it becomes, so that's the risk. I think that's an underlying risk, because there's so many things that, you know, that districts try to do, which is great, but a lot of them fall into that category of, you know, 1 month and done.
Right.
And there are other initiatives that are more well-researched and more rooted in long-time use, right? Like PLC, right?
Right.
That don't always get the traction that they should get, because it falls into that messaging that is just another initiative that they're trying to do, rather than looking at the research. And sustainability is one of those long-term, deeply rooted, scientifically back, all that stuff. But it could, you know, the bell could ring that it's, so that's the risk. And that's just from a teacher point of view,
Yeah.
right? Here's, you know, you introduce it on an institute day, and you say, the board came up with this resolution, this is what we're gonna do. Oh, okay.
Right. Right.
And fades. So that was just one risk that comes into my mind as I think about what's presented to me as a teacher,
Yep.
and what I truly believe in, versus how I see my colleagues reacting to things or whatnot.
So if I'm summarizing, did you get notes?
Would you like me
Okay.
to do, would you like
The
me to do
no
that again?
flavor of the month, and it's the back and forth, and it's the, okay, this year we're gonna focus on this, and then next year we're gonna focus on this,
Right.
and then we're gonna focus
It's
on
kind
this.
of like the
and-
qualitative, you
You guys
know,
figure it out.
unfunded mandate for teach, you know,
Right.
it's
The
not
time.
that complicated, it's because it's not state legislation, but it's the thing that's on the agenda at the beginning of the year,
Right,
that then you never see again,
right,
if it's not done correctly.
okay.
Right.
So the
Whatever.
execution,
Whatever that, I don't know always what that means, because those different things always have a different story attached to them.
yeah,
But it's just an acknowledgement of that, so that it's a question that we might want to ask if we're working through this, like, do we have it so that it's not just the flavor of the month? Where does it fit into there? So,
right,
yeah.
right, okay.
I've got two things, and I need a point of clarification because
Yep.
I thought our strategic plan was 2021.
What did I,
Here it
we
says
are-
2019 to 2023.
Yeah, no, that's not it.
no,
Yeah, 21.
21, okay.
21 to,
Thank you.
we didn't have an
Twen-
end. It was the year after, it was 21 because we
It
did it
was,
It was, you're right, yeah,
during COVID.
yep,
We did it remotely.
thank you.
Yeah. But it was the winter of 21 that we did the work on it.
Yeah.
So I guess, and that, the reason why I ask is I know we don't have an end date on that strategic plan, but one of the risks that I see is that it's sort of sideways to Jim's concern, which is we shift focus, particularly, not by a resolution, because I think a resolution around what we believe is important, but with the action of a task force and, you know, sort of committing our resources, district resources to this, we're shifting away from the current strategic plan.
Right.
And we're making an assumption that it will come up through community engagement through the next strategic plan. Now, I think it will, and I think it, you know, it may well be time in the next strategic planning cycle, but my preference would be to let that play out, so that it truly becomes a community. You know, we talk about a community engagement, so like we want that direction to come from the community in the next strategic planning cycle, so that we can allocate the resources and with fidelity to say it's because it's a priority in our strategic plan.
Okay, so the risk is diluting the attention resource allocation of the current, which we've agreed to as a community, diluting that, and then also, if I heard you correctly, the risk is that we are kind of jumping the gun, if you will, on, I'm sorry, that's a terrible, what's another way of,
Yeah, leapfrogging.
Jump on the bridge.
doing it too early.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Prior to
That's like out of
strategic,
cycle. Feels a
right,
little out of cycle,
right.
yeah.
Can I add on to that one before you?
Wait, I'm sorry,
Oh.
can we just, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, because I
sure.
wanted to have a whole section for you, I'm sorry, I didn't say that. So,
I had a whole section?
yeah, because.
I don't need a whole section, but, okay.
Yeah. But I just want to make sure, did you get, Okay,
That'll work.
okay, sorry.
No, if you want to give me a section, I'll take a
I want to give you like,
Can I put a hat on while I have the section?
yes, you want them all?
I will wait. And I think,
you
Christy, you're doing that
documents.
because you know I've had time to think about this, yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Fair
And then
enough.
the second one I wanted to note was just, is some of the things that are in this, I worry that they may not be board work. So like the board developing actionable targets
Yeah,
doesn't
that's a
feel like
sticky
board
one.
work. And then I worry about the task force sort of auditing, it just, that third bullet in the task force, just, I know the intent is positive, but, you know, to the people who do these things in our district for a living, what does it feel like to have a task force review it all? How does that land with the people who are tasked with it as their full-time job? And I get that this task force might have some experts, but I think there's a risk of people feeling a bit like, why is a task force reviewing what I do for a living? And then treating it, so, those are my two.
Jess, I know you're writing. Did you want to add anything? You're still adding. Okay, Christy, so, impact on, the risk, impact of feeling micromanaged? That I'm paraphrasing, is that correct?
Yeah, just
Or
feeling
like analyzed
audited
or
by,
assessed, or like we're,
yeah.
this?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think there was something before that. I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Just is developing actionable targets really board work?
Board work, gotcha. Okay,
We could say we want actionable targets, but I don't know that's our work to say what they are.
okay. Okay. Anyone else this way? Can you take all of that and everything you've been thinking about and, like, you don't have to put on hats, but just what is
You betcha.
what is the?
Yes, thank you, I appreciate that, Christy.
We'll let the hats go now.
Yeah, no hats.
Thank you
All right.
very much for humoring me on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had time to, because I actually saw several drafts of this, so thank you
Yeah.
very much. And Christy, thank you for having met with me, bringing it in over time, I know, and also meeting with Chris and Scott, just to talk about various things. So a lot of this you've already heard, we've talked about a little bit. Whoops, I also had the opportunity today to meet with our cabinet and to review a draft with the cabinet so that they could also think through this with me. So I guess I have questions. Some of them, though, certainly tip into risk land.
Yeah.
So I have these questions divided between process and priorities. So I'm going to just start with process, and I think actually the first question is easy, and I kind of think it's already been answered, having to do with the task force, which is this like a special board committee? Because I was looking at the policy 2150 has special board committees, which have kind of a beginning and an end, and you earlier said something about it would end, in March when information was presented, so it does sound like a special board committee. I did wonder who's on this task force, and how does somebody get on it? Is this the kind of thing where we're sending out a, district-wide survey and asking people who wants to be a part of this, or is it much smaller, and just how do people express interest? So I was wondering about that. As the cabinet and I looked at the timeline, we just wondered, because we know how many initiatives are in place, is this is the timeline too aggressive? I don't know, but it was a question. We talked about some things that, Christy, I think you just talked about regarding the work of the task force. And I'm glad to tell you, we didn't have members of our team say that they would be offended by anyone talking about their work, but more, just is this more in the weeds than we would want someone to be involved in? A simple question, are the working board meetings in place of regular business meetings or in addition? We've already narrowed down how many board meetings we have this year, and in fact, spoiler alert, I'll talk about this at the end, we have to decide about what to do about May, because we have a confusion in May now about our meetings. So, would this be additional meetings or just, is it the working meetings, or is it just in place of a regular board meeting? But probably my biggest process question is related to strategic plan. And I am thinking about that in two different ways. One is the assumption that, I can't think of the language, includes sustainability as a key consideration in the next strategic plan. So first of all, board, I just want to remind you that we did have a conversation at this table a few months ago about when you wanted to do strategic planning again. And the agreement was that it would be in the winter or spring of, spring probably of 2026. So our current strategic plan now actually does have an end date. It didn't originally, but now it does. So it brings us through this year, and it brings us through the end of next year, and then you'll have a new strategic plan. Now, there's plenty of strategic planning processes that you can choose to use. I'm just going to kind of refresh what we did last time, which included bringing together, and inviting people to say that they wanted to be a part of the process, right? So community members elected to be a part of the process, staff members elected to be a part of the process. I believe all board members were a part of the process. A lot of our administrators were a part of the process. If I'm remembering correctly, we did some surveys of the community to help identify some priorities. So to me, that's how you create a strategic plan, is you have the community tell you, this is what's important to us. This board has had enough conversation over time, and there's enough embedded in some of our policy to make me believe that, that sustainability is important to this board. I'm going to say to different extents for different people, right? But it's something that people are invested in. But what if we were having a conversation right now about a different initiative, a different topic that didn't come through the community, that came at the board table, and we had a board member saying, hey, I want to talk about this, and I think this needs to be in the next strategic plan, and in fact, I'd like to create some things that kind of seem like goals around it now, and it didn't come through the strategic plan. To me, that feels like a risk. So that's the process. I have one other small process matter, which is the communicating the baseline piece about the health of students, staff, and administrators. It is very difficult to gather, I don't know how we gather reliable metrics around the health of students, staff, and administrators in relation to sustainability topics, because the data that we are able to collect has so many factors that surround it. So I just question how we would be able to do that, and certainly, and I know you all know this, we certainly can't be communicating any protected information, and I'm sure you didn't intend that, but I just wanted to state it. So that's those are the process questions I have, or I have, and Cabinet has. And then priorities, which we did just talk about. A few of you talked about that. I think, Jim, you were talking about that a little bit. So, you know, on the one hand, we have this great list of, Stephen, I think you talked about storytelling. Well, Christy, you started talking about storytelling first, that this was storytelling, yes, maybe, right? And you jumped on that, Stephen, and I agree. I think this does tell a wonderful story about the work that's already been done. But when you turn the page, well, my page, and you move it into the resolution and the task force and then the to-dos, that's when I start wondering about priorities. And so it makes me question, would the board want to put, I'm going to use the term green initiatives, but we can use whatever we want, ahead of other priorities, some of which, many of which have been identified in our current strategic plan. And would the board want us to put those green initiatives ahead of other priorities in relation to, first of all, financial commitment? I know there's language in here about potential grants and funding mechanisms, but one thing we know about grants is they don't very often come for free, right? There's all kinds of wonderful matching grants, all kinds of human capital cost regarding grants, right? People doing the work related to the grant. It's not usually free money, and so that would be a concern. We talked a little bit about administrative load, or at least that's how the cabinet and I talked about it today. And so, you know, would the board want us to put green initiatives of other ahead of other priorities in relation to administrative load? We wondered, you know, if this turned into action steps, would that require a director of sustainability? And the reason I asked that question, and please know I'm not asking for a director of sustainability, I'm going to be very honest with you, I'm asking that question because I can, off the top of my head, think of at least 6 other administrative positions that I think we need, that we haven't even talked about because money is such a significant issue for us. And then instructional priorities. So would the board want us to put green initiatives ahead of instructional priorities, some of which have come through the strategic plan, and many of which come through state standards? So, so those are the things, those are the questions that I have, and my colleagues have. I don't want to speak for everyone. Do any of you have anything you wanted to add to any of that? Okay. Thank you for giving me a whole chunk. That was nice.
Thank you for thinking so,
Oh, yeah.
so deeply. I don't think Jess probably was able to write all that down.
I have good news. I have it in writing.
I got quite a bit, and
Okay.
one thing I just want to add to the discussion
Sure.
is there was an act that was passed by our state that is becoming effective July of 2025, and it has to do with education, climate education, and so ISB, I think, the State Board of Education is supposed to be helping provide materials, and then I would think that a lot of what that act is suggesting be taught is already being done in our science, social studies, math classrooms. So, and I just want to caution against calling it green initiatives, because sustainability is, as we know, equity, it's financial sustainability, and environmental related issues. So,
It's actually
and
the
yeah,
intersection.
and we all have different definitions, and that's why we feel it's important to define it together.
define it.
Yeah.
Right, right. Okay. Great questions. Thank you, everyone. Great information. Thank you for humoring me with the hats. I very much appreciate that. I have some initial thoughts, but Jess and I have not had a chance to get together, so is it okay to bring this back for a second look and then think through those questions and make sure that those concerns are woven into the resolution? Does that work? Great, that's it.
Thanks for putting this together.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to everyone.
Hey, topics for future agenda items.
Yes. All right, well, board, first of all, I know we need to schedule another finance committee committee meeting. I can run through some dates with you right now, but I also could just send you a form to identify, with a bunch of dates for you to identify when you're available. Would you like that better? Okay, that seems better than people having to call their spouse in the middle of a meeting.
October 2nd one of those too, because we missed. October
It
2nd
is
is a Wednesday as
not.
well. That's a possibility, I think. I thought. Or is that not?
I'll send dates.
Send dates.
I'll send dates.
Sounds good.
Okay, so October 16th, remember that's only one, that we only have one board meeting in October because we have the IASB Lake Division meeting on October 9th. That meeting will start, or that evening will start with a 5 o'clock policy committee meeting, and board, I think you all have access to the policy worksheet and have been able to start reviewing them. Great. So that evening, we will then talk policy again at the board meeting. Chris Wildman will be doing a proposed 2024 tentative property tax levy presentation, correct? Okay. Do you want us to have the sustainability to resolution as unfinished business at that meeting? Or do you want more time?
It's October
It's
16th.
October 16th.
I will not be here on that.
Okay, so we will move that to the next one. Hold on a second, I think that is that'll be November 6th is the next one. And actually, we will have students at the table. That's the first night that we have Park Campus with us on November 6th. Okay, so we'll do that November 6th. And then,
Lynn, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I will be in Ireland that week.
okay,
On the
we
Christmas
can do it on November 20th. We'll have GMS students at the table that evening. Will that
Okay,
work?
great. Thank
Sure. Okay, that's okay. I had nothing planned. So, and then, so May 7th, which is one of our 2 May meetings, is the Educator of the Year ceremony. We've had that before, where we had to move a meeting. So we could go down to 1 meeting in May, which would be May 14th, or we could have May 14th and May 28th, and then move our June meetings back. So I'm not asking for your opinion about that right now. I'm just saying I think I'll make that an agenda item on October 16th so you can figure out what you want to do. Okay, yes. I did reach out to the ROE today and say, okay, this year, the Educator of the Year ceremony is on the first Wednesday in May. Last year, it was on the second Wednesday in May. Do you have an idea of when it'll be next year? And I actually got a date, which I already sent to Sue. So this hopefully we'll be able to avoid for the 25-26 school year. We'll be able to schedule around it, but I'll bring that back. Okay, so that's what I have for October 16th. Sound good? Okay.
I forgot. We should have the printouts and access to the IASB resolutions, and we'll need to discuss that.
Yes.
How we plan to vote as a board. I think we were supposed to get them by the end of September, so hopefully we can discuss them in October,
Okay, got it.
October 16th.
That's it for now.
Okay, we have no public comments, I'm assuming? We do have a closed
We
session? Okay. We are going to adjourn the meeting into closed session in accordance with Public Act 5 ILCS 120/2, paragraph C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel.
No.
This was what I was giving out.
We're talking about my.
We're talking about
goal.
chocolate.
I'm just gonna tell you what we're doing. So that's evaluation?
So evaluation, that is, yeah, performance.
Yeah, performance.
What I meant was, that's the right one. Thank you so much, Dr. Mack.
There we go. For the
That's what I
public
meant.
body to determine its validity.
It's really good when we're about to talk about my goals and I correct the board president
Well,
in
that's okay,
public.
it's on video now.
That's awesome, forever.
I need a motion to move into closed session about chocolate. Sorry, about what we discussed.
I'll move. Oh,
I'll second.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
aye.
Weedman, and Braden.
Aye.
Okay, and we do not anticipate any additional business to come out after the closed session, so we will adjourn directly from there. Thank you, everybody.